Hi there everyone, Lars here with another fight analysis, and for a return to these kinds of videos I am going big, with a look at All Might versus All for One and Endeavour versus High End. More specifically, I want to look at how these two fights complement each other and together constitute a major shift in My Hero Academia. This means that I will be dealing with a lot of spoilers, so you might want to make sure that you're caught up on both the anime and the manga for what I'm about to get into with this video. That being said, welcome to Camille's Harem, not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And I loved doing these videos last year. I am someone who does a lot of action writing, and I will admit, as a new writer, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. It's difficult. And I am always impressed when I see how other authors and other artists out there are able to craft really amazing and meaningful fight sequences. And that's something that I've really tried to take to heart as I've written my own action pieces. And while there is definitely a steep learning curve to figuring out what's going to jive with your style, I have to say this: Horikoshi does a phenomenal job with so many of his fights. He really does not get the credit that he rightly deserves for a lot of his action pieces. And I hope to kind of show a little bit of that through this comparison of these two monumental classic clashes within the My Hero series. In previous fight analyses videos, what I've done is I have kind of gone blow by blow with all of the crazy antics that go on in the fight, and I try to say what works really well and what doesn't. What I want to do, though, with this particular fight is not so much look at the action sequences themselves, but rather the themes. And this drives at the heart of what any good fight should have. Granted, there are some fights that are just gratuitous, that are just awesome for being what they are. If we look at something like John Wick, yes, there is, in the first movie at least, this underlying current of I'm going to get revenge for the death of my dog, which is awesome, but a lot of the fights are just there to kind of wow you with just like, oh my gosh, it's so brutal. And sometimes it's perfectly fine to have fights like that. However, when you want to ground your series in certain action sequences, ones that really mean something, that are going to deliver not only a wow factor to your audience, but also hit them with a lot of emotion, with a lot of thought, and that will make them kind of go back and be like, did I actually understand what I just saw right there? Those fights dive deep into the themes of your story. And that leads me right to my two qualifiers of trying to understand what makes a good fight. I have two questions that I believe should guide every single action sequence that either you as an author are writing or that you as an observer are trying to understand. The two questions are these: what is the story that is being told here? And question two, what is the purpose of this fight? So, very simple. My Hero Academia is a story about Izuku Midoriya, who will become the world's #1 hero. That sounds like a really simplistic kind of story right there. However, the way that Horikoshi keeps this one theme alive and fresh is that you as the reader are constantly learning what it takes to make a great hero. If you don't believe me, you can look at every single arc of the My Hero Academia series, and there is a different lesson about heroism in that arc. And what we hope as the audience is to see how Izuku will take all of those lessons, whether they be learned secondhand or firsthand, and apply them to himself so that way he can not only wield All Might's power, but be worthy of the title and position that All Might held as the #1 hero and as the pillar of peace within their society. So because the story that is being told is not only about the story of a young boy who becomes the #1 hero, but what it really takes to become and to be a hero, That is what we will need to focus on when we look at the fights of All Might versus All for One and Endeavour versus High End. Second question, what is the purpose to this fight, or in this case, these two fights? What we are going to see is that the purpose of these fights is to not only convey the message of what it takes to be a really great hero, but what we see is the close on a golden age of heroism and the beginning of a new age of what it really means to be a hero in much darker times. That's what's really below the surface. If we just look at the surface level stuff, however, really what we're seeing here is we're going to see two awesome fights about basically this world's version of Superman versus his arch nemesis, and then a not quite fallen superhero, but a fallen individual rising to become the superhero that society needs him to be. And yeah, they're just really awesome fights. And before I get into the nitty-gritty here, I will be drawing from both the anime and from the manga. However, just because I can, I'm going to insert my own personal preference right here. I actually prefer the All Might versus All for One fight in the manga as opposed to the anime. And I prefer the Endeavour versus High End fight in the anime as opposed to the manga. And that might seem a little bit strange at first, and I will admit that is totally personal preference. However, for me, when I went back and I was looking at these episodes and at the manga chapters involved, in terms of manga chapters and space on the page, both battles take up basically the same amount of space. However, in the anime, the fight between All Might and All for One is drawn out, and that makes sense because this fight is meant to be big. We've been building up to this. It is a monumental moment. In the anime, however, it is still drawn out, but it is not quite as drawn out. It doesn't drag on as long, at least in my opinion. But it is important that it drags out a little bit more in the anime because we're able then to really delve into the emotions of Endeavour as he is in this fight and what Hawks himself is thinking and how he's feeling as he is helping Endeavour out. When I watched All Might versus All for One in the anime, I did enjoy it, but not as much as in the manga, because in the manga it's coming so fast, it's coming so hard, it is raw. It's a really fast read, and if you're like me, who was catching up to where everyone else was in the harem, I hadn't yet caught up to the point after whereas in the manga. I believe when I caught up, we were in the joint training arc, and so when I was working to catch up, I just read through those chapters, and it was just, as I said, it was so fast, it was so raw, and there was no escape from the emotion. Whereas with High End and Endeavour, it went by so fast that it was hard to really pick up on the emotions and the conclusions that Endeavour was having, which I was happy that the anime dragged out. But enough of that preamble. That's my justification for a tangent right there. Let me know what you guys think, if you preferred the fight in the manga or the fight in the anime, down in the comment section. Alright, so jumping right into it. All Might versus All for One. This is clearly set up just like a classic comic book fight between the main hero and the main villain. Oh my gosh, it is so beautifully done. Everything that was set up with the training camp arc and how Bakugo is kidnapped, Bakugo's moment of showing that he really is a hero at heart by standing up to the League of Villains, then the heroes crashing right through the wall, almost rescuing him until All for One steps in, sucks them all back with his teleportation. Boom, you find out that he has just wiped out a whole bunch of heroes single-handedly after they defeated all of his Nomu and captured them, and our main cast of students are watching, and they are absolutely horrified. They can just feel the evil and the intent to murder dripping, emanating from All for One. And All for One has this moment of just like, Tomura Shigaraki, I am here to help you out. Pick up as many times as you need. You will end up being victorious. It's oddly a very emotional moment when you read that in the manga. And then, boom! All Might just slams down. As I said, in the manga, it's super fast. In the anime, that moment is drawn out a little bit more, but it feels like it's only been seconds since Bakugo was abducted for yet the second time, and All Might just lands, crashes right there on the scene, and All for One just turns around and he's just all like, you're slowing down. You're like, that was super fast. He just jumped, what, 5 kilometers? Boom, he's right here. And then the fight begins, and it's just a great all-out brawl. It's awesome because you get to see that All Might, though he is the #1 hero, and he's doing actually a really good job fighting against All for One, given the circumstances, he is not truly the kind of Superman that we would expect. Maybe in his heyday, he would have been able to speedily wipe out everyone and save Bakugo single-handedly. But that is not the All Might that we have right here. This is All Might post-crippling wound, and he is doing his absolute best, but it's just not enough until Deku and his friends are able to figure out the perfect plan to rush in and save Bakugo. By doing so, they are able to free up All Might for his epic one-off stand with All for One, and All for One acts immediately, getting Shigaraki and all of his allies out of the situation through teleportation quirks, through manipulation quirks, and so forth, because he recognizes that in this particular scenario, without Bakugo, and with All Might now being able to cut loose, the League of Villains will not be able to stand up to All Might, and they will lose. So he has to get them out of the way. This shows incredible brilliance on the part of All for One. It shows fantastic judgment, and he has all the quirks necessary to make this work. And now we can have the true traditional confrontation between arch-villain and the ultimate hero. And it stands to be said, yet again, that All Might stands in this world in the place of a Superman character. He stands for the ultimate good. And we see that with the way that his suit is, with the way he is built. You look at him, and while he may not be curly-haired Superman, a lot of his physique and the way he's drawn is meant to evoke those images of Superman. And yeah, he's got the crazy awesome anime hair going on, which in a way kind of just like, and he's like a Super Saiyan. And his suit is also reminiscent of Captain America, and let's be honest right here, besides Superman, who's a greater good boy, it's going to be Captain America. So All Might stands as the ultimate hero, as the best that humanity can offer. And he's facing off against All for One, who, if All Might is a representation of Superman, stands in place as a really crazy hybrid mix of Lex Luthor and Brainiac. He has the intelligence of Brainiac. He has even that crazy headgear which looks a lot like Brainiac's head, but he's wearing that crisp suit like Lex Luthor, and he's holding himself with that smugness, with that confidence that he is going to win. In this fight, while he looks like Brainiac and fights like Brainiac, he has all of the intelligence, the smugness, and that drive to hit the hero where it hurts the most, just like Lex Luthor. And that is such a brilliant setup for a confrontation. Now then, as I said, the fight is fast. We get a couple of really quick blows. They are destroying the surrounding neighborhood, and they get into a conversation of basically, what does it mean to be a hero? And what is really great is that All for One begins using the same saying, "I am here," to counter All Might. Essentially what he is saying is, if you are the embodiment of good, I am the embodiment of everything else. And he willfully acknowledges that. But not just that, he intends on being what counters and negates All Might and what he has stood for completely. He does this by breaking All Might down to his skeletal figure, exposing him to the world for the weak man that he is. And then he further taunts All Might by basically saying, yeah, you can't win. You can't save everyone. Heroes have so much to protect, but you can't protect them. And yet All Might still stands there, willing to protect everyone, willing to sacrifice his frail frame to come out on top, to protect strangers. And everyone is watching this. Everyone recognizes it. And All for One recognizes it as well. In fact, this is the moment that he's been waiting for. Because as they continue their dialogue and they talk about the heart of a hero, All for One slips in the knife. The heart of a hero. Heroes have so much to protect. You have built up a society where everyone should be able to smile without any kind of fear. But there's one boy who you failed, Tomura Shigaraki. And not only did you fail this one boy, he is the grandson of your mentor and the previous holder of One for All. And in that moment, All Might, who his visage has always been one that no matter how difficult it is, he can always come out on top smiling, showing that there's no reason to be afraid and that everything is good because he is here. His smile completely disappears and there is no comeback. He tries to deny. He says, "You are lying," and All for One just says, "You know that this is something I would totally do. Where's your heart? Where's that smile?" With his own warped face, he bends himself into a smile, mocking the previous holder of One for All, mocking All Might to the very core. And it is so well done because in this moment, All for One has succeeded. He has gained a small victory by the end of this fight, no matter what, because he was able to get All Might to stop smiling. It heralds to the world that the society that All Might had built up has begun to crumble and collapse. However, what is so amazing and what brings all of the emotions is that as All for One continues to drive his knife in, All Might takes that proverbial knife by the handle, stops it, and pulls it on out, finding again that resolve to use up the last dregs of his power in a move that mimics his own student, Izuku, showing that Izuku's not the only one who can go absolutely crazy in a fight and ruin himself to win. He pulls out the win and he smashes, slams All for One into the ground with that amazing United States of Smash. Oh my gosh, that is, it doesn't matter if it's in the manga or in the anime, that is just a moment that absolutely blows me away. What it shows is that All Might still stands strong and follows through. He shows that he is every bit the hero that everyone has seen him to be. And after defeating All for One, he strikes a heroic pose and he stands there triumphant, reclaiming just for a brief moment that strong muscular form to show that he has not been beaten. Meaning that even though his smile was taken away, and even though this is the end of the society that he helped to create, he was not defeated. And the values that he represents still stand strong. Meaning that the number one hero, the perfect Superman hero, is still something that can be had. Meaning that Izuku will indeed become that kind of hero by the end of the story. So yeah, we now find ourselves in a very interesting situation where the world of My Hero has been irrevocably changed. It can never go back to the way it once was. Even when Izuku eventually will become the number one hero, things have changed. Superman was beaten to a pulp in front of everyone, and though he came out on top, what was the cost? Well, in the preceding stories that we see, in the arcs that will follow on up, we see how society tries to find a way to cope with what is going on. They try to find a way to make better heroes, to encourage the heroes now to begin to work together, because they're like, Endeavour is now the new number one hero, and there was a chasm between him and All Might in terms of ability, likability, power, potential, and society is really scared. And so now the heroes are encouraged to not only strive to be the best, but to really work together. And that is what we get then when we see the fight between Endeavour and High End. Now, before I get into that fight, it needs to be brought up that Endeavour, while a personal favorite of mine within the story, was a really, really crappy human being, to put it lightly. Domestic abuse is no laughing matter and cannot be justified. Let's leave it at that. But Endeavour has been laboring under those sins for so long, and now realizing that he is the number one hero by default, and that he really cannot measure up to what All Might was, he comes to All Might in a certain amount of humility and really wants to know what he can do to become the next pillar of society, to try to hold up the crumbling world around them. And he takes it to heart. To his credit, he takes it to heart, and he realizes that he needs to make serious changes in his life. Whether or not he can make those changes are things that we still expect to see as the story unfolds. However, he begins making those steps. On top of that, he still has to be the number one hero, and he has a lot to live up to. Enter Hawks, this hilarious, amazing, cool hero who everyone's just like, it's Icarus. Oh my gosh, that poor boy. And yeah, if you're caught up with the manga, not going to spoil it, but let's just say that Hawks kind of goes in over his head a little bit. That being said, Hawks is an immensely important character for setting up everything that comes after this particular fight, and not in the least because he seeks out Endeavour. He brings him to a city and says, hey look, there have been lots of rumors about Nomu running around, and I need your help to confirm them. What Endeavour doesn't know, and what we as the audience don't know until later, and this is right here, this is definitely part of the spoilers right here for you anime onlys, you might want to click out right about now. Essentially what is going on here is that Hawks is working with the League of Villains to try to draw them out into the open, so that way they can find out more about them, so that way the heroes can find out more about them, and then hunt them to extinction. To this end, Hawks is working with Dabi to offer up heroes as sacrifices to powerful Nomus. And so Hawks said, I'll bring you a powerful hero that your high-end Nomu can go up against. And he brings Endeavour because Endeavor's the number one hero. He wants the heroes to win, but he cannot make it look too obvious to the League of Villains that he is trying to set them up for failure. He's like, well, this is your best Nomu, let's see how it does against the number one hero. That's his justification. And sure enough, High End comes in for the attack, and it's once again just a fast, brutal fight. High End is looking to kill as many people as possible in the process of showing off his own strength by killing Endeavour. And it is a fantastic, brutal fight. And Endeavour is really quickly brought to the brink of his own abilities because he goes all out really fast, using his best moves which superheat his body and begin to shut down his internal organs in an attempt, in a gambit, to completely cripple High End. However, High End has such fast regeneration that it really doesn't matter. And High End is intelligent. At one point, High End realizes he's about to die, rips off his own head, chucks it, and then regrows from his head. Oh my gosh. If any of you are fans of Bleach and you thought that Ulquiorra was a hard boss to beat, try High End. But Endeavour is not alone in this particular fight. He has Hawks at his back, and that is something that is really neat to see. Hawks has this inner monologue where he's like, my back is not strong enough or wide enough to protect all of the people around me, which is incredible for him to say that because his quirk, being able to use every single one of the feathers on his wings as basically kind of like a hovercraft slash sword slash barrier slash sonar machine. These feathers can do so much. He is saving so many people, and yet he's like, I'm not strong enough. And as he sees Endeavour becoming weakened, he sacrifices his own feathers to give Endeavour that extra boost of speed and strength to then propel High End up into the sky as the as the crowds down below are watching in awe and in fear because they don't know if they're going to watch a hero get killed or not. And up in the sky, you finally have that one really beautiful moment. At least the anime really does a lot to bring out the emotion for this right here, where Endeavour realizes by fighting with this monster that wants to just be so strong, he realizes this was me in the past, or this could be me in another future. I will no longer be that man enslaved to the past. I'm going to move on. All Might said, I am here, as a way of showing the best has come and everything will be all right. But what Endeavour says is different, where he says, just, and what he's saying is, we should watch a man who is doing his absolute best. He isn't the best. He is no All Might. However, as a man who is trying to do his best, as a flawed man who is trying to do his best, he shows what heroes are. Flawed individuals who are doing everything they can for the greater good. And that is a very powerful message right there. And it leads us into what My Hero Academia is about to become. The perfect world of superheroes who guarded against criminals and villains embodied by All Might is gone. We now enter into a world of superheroes who are not ready for this kind of work, who are going up against villains who are going to test them to their utmost. And a lot of these heroes are not as perfect. They're not even close to being as perfect as All Might was. But yet they are standing their ground and fighting together. They have become a team fighting for the greater good despite their flaws. Just watch me. We as the audience are meant to watch Endeavour rise above his challenges, to become the hero that he needs to be for this society. And that is an incredible thing to watch. So it's extremely emotional. There's so much that's bound up in that one particular fight, and also in the fight between All Might and All for One. There can be entire essays written about these two battles alone. But as I said, I mostly wanted to focus on the themes. So coming back to it, what are we really seeing right here? I will repeat myself by saying All Might stood for the best. He was the Superman of this world. He represented the hope, the security, the goodness, the perfection that we look for in our superheroes, in the superheroes that we can always rely on the superheroes who build up a society where we feel safe and where we can be happy. However, that all ends with All Might's victory, but also his ultimate loss at the hands of All for One. And we have this awkward in-between phase between that fight and the battle between Endeavour and High End. When I look at the things that have been said by different fans of the series, there's way more discrepancy. Some people really love the overhaul arc, while others say, man, that went on for so long, that wasn't really necessary, it could have been shorter. Others look at Gentle Criminal and say, wow, that guy was hilarious, I loved him. Others say, why did we even have that arc? And there's just, yeah, it's kind of an awkward time of transition. And that's actually the way that it's supposed to be, because the world is falling apart and people don't know what to do until Endeavour proves himself as the new #1 hero. And it's great because, especially as you're watching the anime, it says that this is his beginning. Much like his son Shoto had his origin story, this is Endeavor's beginning as he fights High End. And he can't defeat High End on his own. He has to receive help from Hawks. So we have these two flawed individuals, Endeavour and Hawks, who come together to defeat a great evil and restore peace to the city. This is what My Hero Academia will be about from this point on. And if you are paying attention to all of the arcs that have come afterwards, this is a lot of what we see. We see heroes trying to do their best when they are laboring under so many weaknesses or personal flaws or personal problems, and yet they come together to achieve a greater good. And that's even seen in the My Villain Academia arc, where the villains on both sides come together, very flawed individuals, to duke it out over who has the greater ideology and who deserves to stand up at the top of a new villain society. This theme is still running along the way. Now that it's going to change a little bit, once again, not to get deep into manga spoilers right here, but in the current arc, this war arc, which I definitely want to do a video of when it's done, because holy dang, it is so good. But with everything that's going on in the current arc in the manga, we are going to see another transition. And that's something that has me really excited to see what's going to come after this. But the battle between Endeavour and High End concludes what we saw with All Might versus All for One, and it sets up everything that is to come. These two fights really complement each other. They bookend a strange, awkward transition period, but they also mark the end of the hopeful, classic superhero beginning of the story, and mark the much grittier epic that we are going to be getting even deeper into as we continue on through My Hero. So those right there are my thoughts, and that is why I feel like these two fights, when brought together, are phenomenal. They are, in my opinion, the two best fights in the entire series. All for One versus All Might and High End versus Endeavour is where it is all at, because those two shoulder the themes of the story and really present once again that this story, this manga, this anime is all about what it means to be a hero, and that our main man Izuku must learn all of the lessons from each arc and incorporate them into himself in order to become the next symbol of peace. So I hope that you enjoyed my take on these two fights. If you are feeling kind of bored, definitely go back and reread them in the manga, watch them again in the anime, and after you've done that, feel free to pop on by our podcast, Camille's Harem, where we've got tons of writing advice for you writers out there. And if you're someone who enjoyed my ramblings and my analysis into this or into these fights, please go check out the other videos that we have done on fights and breaking down other amazing stories that we have up here on YouTube. If you're a writer who would like to have some writing exercises, we definitely have them for you over our Pinterest page, and we have discussions over at our subreddit. Please feel free to check those out. Links for all of those sites are in the description, and I hope to see you all in the next video. And I cannot wait for when we come to the conclusion of this recent war arc, because man, it is fantastic. All right, y'all. Tschüss.